Hey guys, welcome to Digit.in. We already have our reviews of these consoles up. If you have missed those, then that's probably because you aren't subscribed to our channel, and you may want to hit that bell icon to be notified when we upload a new video. And since we have both the consoles in-house, if there's anything specific that we may have missed out or that you would like to know, let us know, and if there's enough demand for it, we may just end up making a video about it, or else I will do my best to answer your questions in the comment section. So let's quickly get started with the comparison that you've been waiting for. The PS5 versus the Xbox Series X. Both are available in India, and both, as of recording this, are as scarce as a unicorn is. So you know it exists, you probably have seen one somewhere, but you can't prove it to your friends. Okay, that was a really bad intro. Let's kick things off with the build and the design of these. Now, they both are drastically very different, and for very good reason. The Xbox has this monolith from 2001 A Space Odyssey kind of a look, which I prefer. It's black, it's easier to clean, it doesn't get fingerprints, it's got a nice matte finish all around. Whereas we have the Tower of Mordor with the PS5, which when you need to put it horizontally and then keep it vertically, you are going to need a screwdriver, you are going to need to change the base stand. It's going to be a process, unlike the Xbox, which is just tipping it to a side. However, the design is a very personal choice, so it's actually up to you. Remember, for the PS5 you are going to need a lot of space, because even when I keep it under my TV vertically, almost reaches the TV from the cabinet that I've kept it on, so I need to keep it horizontally. Kept horizontally, it kind of gives you this feeling that it's levitating a little bit, which is really cool, especially if you're someone that enjoys gaming in absolute darkness, knowing that the LED lights, when they come on out here, they actually look really good. The Xbox just has the Xbox button that comes on. Because this is India, remember, there's going to be a lot of dust. We've used the PS5 for about a month and the Series X for about 2 months, and we have seen that the vents at the back do catch some dust, so you may want to keep a can of compressed air or a cloth at hand to wipe these off regularly. The PS5 side plates can be removed, bringing more customization to it in the near future if that's something that you want, but it also helps with just opening the side panels and using compressed air to clean it. It's actually really easy. It isn't as difficult as it sounds, or some videos have shown it. So keeping these consoles clean is an easier task than the previous generation. What isn't, especially in terms of the PS5, is changing the built-in storage. Now, Microsoft did not give you that option with the Xbox One family, so we really didn't expect it here, but for the first time since the PS3 had it, the PS4 had it, you cannot upgrade the built-in storage physically because that's soldered onto the motherboard. However, you do have an expansion slot where you can use an M.2 SSD, which will have to fulfill certain criteria, and Sony hasn't enabled that yet, so we will have to wait for expansion storage. But on the Xbox side of things, you have an expansion slot right at the back. So thinking and speaking of connectivity options, you do have one USB type A port on the front of both the consoles. Out here you can see we've kept a USB thumb drive plugged in because it's easier to capture longer footage using that. On the PS5 you have a USB type C port and a type A port, so an extra port out there. At the back, both of them have two USB type 3 ports, USB 3 ports type A. You both have Ethernet. We both have a power socket and an HDMI 2.1 port. There is no optical output out here, so if you're someone that's using optical as a medium of audio, that is a bummer. You may need a USB adapter, although we really don't know how well that works because we haven't tried it. So when it comes to ports, both of them are relatively well laid out, with the addition of a USB Type-C port on the front of the PlayStation 5, and both the controllers also use the USB port. Like I said, design is a very personal choice. You may think one is better than the other, but in my books, I think the Series X has a more ergonomic look, whereas the PS5 has a more demanding look where it is going to get your attention. Moving over to the controllers now, this is where things have changed a lot. We've seen the DualShock 4, which came with the PS4, still had kind of a toy-like structure. I mean, it was the best PlayStation controller since the DualShock 3, which was similar to the DualShock 2, the DualShock 1, so on and so forth, with very limited changes. But this time around, we've seen a lot of changes. We first of all have haptic feedback, which has replaced the traditional vibrations, which means that when you're walking on metal in a game like Astrobot's Playroom, or when the cell phone of your character vibrates in a game like Miles Morales, the feeling is very unique. You also have a lot of tension in the triggers in a game like Call of Duty Cold War, where each gun has a more unique expression through the triggers in terms of its resistance, which feels really good. The controller is a game changer. It's one that I've enjoyed more than the Xbox controller to use, simply because it has the ergonomics of the Xbox controller but a lot more features. It also also has a microphone, so you can dictate. The share button is replaced by a create button, but as of right now, it essentially does a lot of the same things, which is take screenshots, capture videos, share your videos, things like that. It also is easier to stream to YouTube or Twitch built in from the PS5 a lot more easily. The shoulder buttons are also a little bigger, which makes them a little easier to use when compared to the PS4 controller. And overall, it is these changes. I mean, the textures which make up the grip of the PS5 controller, the grip isn't as noticeable as the Xbox controller, for example, but it's made up of tiny logos of the PlayStation face buttons, which is absolutely cool. Coming to the Xbox controller, this of course has the better D-pad. There is no two ways about it. The mushy feeling of the PS5 D-pad versus the clicky feeling of the Xbox D-pad, this dish-like design from the Elite controller just works better in the Xbox's favor. Of course, this is a more familiar design, so for the Xbox, it's more like upgrading your PC. You have newer components, you may have a new keyboard and mouse, but the overall feel is a lot the same, and that isn't a bad thing if you're an Xbox gamer. You do have more textured triggers and textured bumpers, which do add a bit to the feel when gaming, but the textured back also helps a lot. You have USB-C for charging and a very traditional way of syncing the controller, and that's also because past generation peripherals are compatible with the Xbox Series X, but you cannot use a DualShock 4 controller to play PS5 games, which is a bummer. You can play your backwards compatible games. So overall, I think Sony has the edge with the DualSense controller, but with battery life, the Xbox controller still wins, especially if you're going to use very good quality AA batteries. You can get up to 40 hours of playback from the battery life of this controller, whereas on the PlayStation 5, you're looking at about 8 to 10 hours. And if you dial everything up to 11 with all the DualSense features, the battery life can reduce. So you may want to keep a charger and of course batteries for the Xbox controller at hand. Now, moving over to some of the unique features, both these consoles, especially the ones we have here, are the disk drive variant. So you do get 4K Blu-ray support, but the Xbox supports Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos, which is great if you're looking for a console to double up as a home entertainment device. But the PlayStation 5 can play 4K HDR Blu-rays, but it does not support Dolby Vision, nor does it support Dolby Atmos. Both of them work well as media streaming devices if that's something that you are into, with of course the advantage with the Xbox being Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos support. But Sony does have 3D audio, which can be enabled by connecting headphones to the controller when gaming, and that of course does give a more unique experience. Let's dive a little deeper into the performance of the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. Now, starting with the PlayStation 5, what is the generational leap that you get with all this new hardware under the hood? Well, to understand this, let's take some cross-gen titles. We have Spider-Man Miles Morales, which is available on the PS4 and the PS5. And the first biggest change to note is the load times. While the load times are pretty swift on the PS4, on the PS5 it takes a matter of 2 seconds for you to fast travel from one location to the other on the map, which is absolutely brilliant. Another thing is that on the PS5 you not only get a high frame rate mode with Miles Morales, but you also get ray tracing. Now at Spider-Man, the developers have optimized the game in such a way that you get a performance plus RT mode, which essentially means that you are getting ray tracing and a higher frame rate. Now, granted, people like Digital Foundry have done a lot of analysis on the ray tracing and the kind of resolutions that this hardware can hit, but the fact that you are getting technology which was earlier exclusive to PCs on a console is brilliant. Moving to a next-gen only title like Demon's Souls. Now, the fire effects, the graphics, the visuals of this game, the fact that it employs Sony's 3D audio, and once you die in the game, you come back in a matter of, again, 1 to 2 seconds, making those load screens almost disappear, which is absolutely brilliant, showcasing the power of the SSD. Future games like Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, which is set to release in the next coming months, also exploits the SSD of the PS5, which shows things like traveling between worlds in a matter of seconds, which previously on the PS4, if you saw the previous Ratchet & Clank game, it was a minute of animations on screen of you traveling through space to get from one planet to the other. But in the promotional material of Rift Apart that we've seen, you can travel between worlds in a matter of seconds. Ratchet & Clank is another game that is going to show off ray tracing capabilities, and the frame rates are something we will know when we get our hands on that game. So yes, we have seen the kind of difference you get between a game that's mastered for cross-generation, but another thing we've seen is games like Days Gone and Ghost of Tsushima, both of which had a 30 FPS mode on the PS4, now get 60 FPS on the PS5, including higher resolutions. If you have a game like God of War, which on the PS4 Pro had a performance mode which struggled to hit 60 FPS, now can be played at a locked 60 FPS on the PS5. Granted, the resolution is still 1080p, but if the developers decided, they could bump up the resolution. Maybe we'll see that with God of War Ragnarok, which is set to release in the future. So that should give you some idea of the performance advancements that we get. Remember, the true potential of a console is generally unlocked within a few years of its release, so we can see breathtaking games, just what Ghost of Tsushima and Last of Us Part 2 were for the PS4 towards the end of that console's life cycle. Maybe we will see a couple of great and some games that will exploit the new consoles in the near future. Coming to the Xbox Series X side of things, we know that a game like Ori can run at 120 FPS and can even run in 6K considering the console's power, but you have to realize that Ori and the Will of the Wisps is a game which is a 2D game, and even though it has great effects and great visuals, it still isn't a very demanding game when it comes to the hardware. Another game which Microsoft is of course exploiting is Gears 5. We have seen that game on the Xbox One and the One X, but on the Series X it looks breathtaking. It has the PC equivalent of ultra graphics. It does not have ray tracing, but the visuals in that game look absolutely brilliant. Even the Gears 5 multiplayer has been optimized to give you 120 FPS, and because the game is mastered for the Xbox, it does touch that frame rate. Third-party games like Devil May Cry, the Devil May Cry 5 Special Edition, which is for the PS5 and the Series X, does have ray tracing, which you can get some brilliant visuals when you put that on, and it also has a high frame rate mode, and both the consoles actually struggle to hit 120 FPS. This has of course been proven by the great guys at Digital Foundry. However, you also have to keep in mind that there are a lot of third parties which are going to be able to give you a dynamic 4K resolution and hit a locked 60 FPS, something which the previous generation struggled with. We have seen third party games like Dirt 5 give you a high performance mode and a high refresh rate mode, and there have been a lot of videos made online which show you a comparison between the PS5 and Xbox Series X performance, where one console's visuals may be better than the other. Another example is Hitman 3, which recently released, and that game has been said to work at a locked 4K 60 FPS on the Xbox Series X and a slightly lower resolution, but locked 60 FPS on the PS5. Nonetheless, when placed side by side, the game looks visually brilliant on both the consoles. So it will be interesting to see going forward how third-party games exploit the more powerful SSD on the PS5 or the more powerful CPU GPU on the Xbox Series X. One thing to note is that whichever exclusives we've seen tend to look brilliant because they are built for that specific console from the ground up and achieve visual fidelity which we did not see in the previous generation, especially when it comes to frame rate. When it comes to cross-platform games available on both the Xbox and the PlayStation, games like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Devil May Cry, Dirt 5, Hitman 3 and so many more, till now it is a very comparable experience. This is not like the last generation where PlayStation had the slight edge from the get-go. Yes, on paper the Xbox is more powerful, but visually you are hard pressed to know what to look for in terms of the difference unless you know what you're looking at. Placed side by side, we've played a lot of games on both the consoles, the same game on both the consoles, and we found it difficult to see the difference between these games. You also have a game like Cyberpunk 2077 which runs really bad on the base PS4 and the base Xbox One, runs fairly bad on the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X, but on the PS5 where we played the game, we even live streamed it to you guys, it was running really smooth at 60 FPS. So that in itself should be a benchmark of the difference in performance that you're getting for a game that was built for the PC and previous generation but runs smoother without any optimizations on the current generation. So that was a quick round of the performance comparison between the two consoles. Now coming to the most important part, which is the games. When it comes to the games, Sony has had an edge over the past entire generation with games like God of War, Ghost of Tsushima, Days Gone, Dreams, and so many more. Marvel's Spider-Man, Spider-Man Miles Morales, and a lot of upcoming games also like Horizon Forbidden West, the new God of War Ragnarok, Deathloop, which is going to be a timed exclusive, and so many more. So Sony is really gunning on that exclusive lineup that they've always had and they're looking forward to. The Xbox console, of course, Microsoft has acquired a lot of studios and they have recently unveiled a small library of exclusive games. We're recording this in January and the Medium is the first Xbox Series X/Xbox Series S exclusive game that is going to come to the console. Of course, it's going to be on PC because Microsoft is kind of integrating the PC as a play anywhere kind of a thing. But that's the first step to exclusives. We are also expecting Halo Infinite this year. We're expecting Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, something from Forza. We have the Perfect Dark teaser. So Microsoft is really going and building its portfolio of exclusive games as well. So I think by 2022 or 2023, when the price of these consoles comes down and maybe most of you are looking at buying it, then you will have stronger competition when it comes to games. But if you aren't extremely finicky about PlayStation's exclusives, you are more into third-party games, of course, PlayStation exclusives are very important. I don't know why you would not be interested in them. But let's say the exclusives of PlayStation are not a deciding factor. It's much easier to recommend the Xbox Series X as a gaming console for someone who's a more price-conscious gamer simply because of Game Pass. Let me explain. Sony's PlayStation Plus subscription will cost you about 3,000 rupees a year. You get 2 PS4 games every month with that subscription and 1 PS5 games. That's 36 games a year that you get with this subscription. And you also get something called as PlayStation Collection, which is a collection of PS4 games. There are 20 games, 10 PS4 exclusives and 10 third-party games. So you can build a library of games without actually going out and purchasing a game for 4,000 or 5,000 rupees at launch. A lot of times Sony does give out its AAA exclusives, which are a year or two old. And of course, Destruction All-Star is going to be one of the games of February. So that is one of the PS5 launch games which got delayed. So Sony is trying to make PS Plus a very enticing service when it comes to games that they're giving. Microsoft, on the other hand, has an ace up its sleeve, which from experience I can tell you will ensure that if you have both consoles, you may just end up spending more time playing on the Xbox because of Game Pass. Now, with all taxes included, Xbox Game Pass will cost you a little around 850 rupees a month. You do the maths and it's a little more than 10,000 rupees a year that you're paying. It may sound like a lot, but remember, all Xbox AAA exclusives, be it games that have launched in the past, your Gears of War, Halo, Forza, Ori, anything from Ninja Theory, anything from developers like id and Bethesda, or anything under the ZeniMax umbrella, because those are now owned by Microsoft, are going to be on Game Pass on day one. So look at it this way. You could buy 3 exclusive games a year for 3,000 rupees. That comes to 9,000 rupees you've spent a year. Maybe throw in a AA game or a game on discount for another 1,000-1,500 rupees. That's 4 games a year that you've purchased for the price of Game Pass subscription, which gives you 100+ games to play anytime you want. It's the Netflix of gaming. You can download those games to the console. And the best part is you can actually get the native Xbox Series X games backed up to an external hard drive and then copy them back to the internal drive to play when you want. Right now, this feature isn't available on the PlayStation 5. Considering the limited storage on the PS5, you will end up deleting your PS5 native games if you are going to build a large library of games, at least until Sony unlocks the expandable SSD. You get 825 GB of space on the PS5 and you get 1 TB of space on the Xbox Series X, of which 667 GB is available on the PS5 and a little over 800 GB is available on the Xbox. So the Xbox does have the storage advantage. So here's answering a question of which is of most importance to you is which console should you buy, because you are already aware of the features of both of them. And that is a little difficult to answer because both these consoles are aiming at very different audiences and they have a very different unique selling proposition. PlayStation is gunning on the fact that it has some of the best exclusives we've seen in the past 5 to 7 years. Not only are we going to get sequels to them, but these are trusted studios. I mean, look at a game like Ghost of Tsushima, Infamous, Spider-Man, God of War, even Demon's Souls, Shadow of the Colossus. All these games which have launched as exclusives for the PS4 and the PS5, they're not buggy. They're not what Cyberpunk has done. They're not what happens when you launch a game prematurely. They offer quality at a bar which is set really high. The Xbox consoles, on the other hand, have so many games on offer for you simply because of Game Pass. They are going to reach that quality because they need to compete with PlayStation, but they are going to give that to you at a fraction of the price, especially every month. So let's say you have 2 weeks of holidays from school or college and you have an Xbox, you can simply pay $850 for just that 1 month, log into Game Pass, play all the games that you really want to play, and when you're going back to school, you could just cancel your subscription. Do you see the value for money proposition out there? It's a cheap trick to do. I know a lot of people have done it. Take a subscription when you want to play and then don't subscribe when you don't want to. But that makes Xbox gaming a lot more value for money proposition, and I think that is where your purchase decision lies. If you want to experience those AAA exclusives, you can. You could get the physical edition of the PS5 and trade games with your friends. That makes gaming a more economical activity. Your friends could buy a couple of games, you could buy a couple of games, you could trade them, and there are so many forums on Facebook and online which are trading in second-hand games, making gaming more accessible. But the way Microsoft is doing it, letting you choose the game you want to play and experience games you otherwise wouldn't have. Gears Tactic is a game that I never thought I would enjoy until I actually played it, and the only reason I played it was because it was available on Game Pass. Guacamelee is another game that I really enjoyed and reviewed it, but I'm sure it is one of those games that I would go back and play if I hadn't, simply because it was there on Game Pass. We've seen games like GTA 5, The Witcher 3, and so many more AAA games, Mortal Kombat, come on Game Pass just to entice you to give it a go. And the best part is now with Game Pass subscription, you also get EA access. So with EA access, you get EA's library of games. So we have Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, you have Need for Speed, you have A Way Out, which is a great co-op game. It's an only co-op game, so you have to play it with a friend. Some of the best games which you may otherwise have missed out on can be yours because of this subscription, and it definitely deserves the attention. Sony does have PlayStation Now internationally, but unfortunately that service is not available in India. And from what we've seen during the launch of these consoles, it's evident that the PlayStation definitely has more demand, but the Xbox definitely has a value for money proposition. In my opinion, and I'm sure you guys are going to hate me for saying this, get both. I mean, you're not going to buy them both immediately at launch and spend a lakh of rupees. That depends on your spending capacity. If you get a PS5 digital edition, it's going to save you 10,000 rupees, maybe more in the future, depending on when you're watching this video. And you will be able to just play those exclusive games, which are definitely worth it if you really enjoy gaming. You could also consider the Xbox Series S. Because Microsoft has such a large number of studios under their umbrella, they are going to ensure that a lot of games are optimized for the smaller consoles. We have seen games like, Cyberpunk, like Watch Dogs, like Assassin's Creed run really well on that small box. Its longevity in terms of a console life cycle is questionable, but it could just be your Game Pass machine. That could be the machine you download and play Game Pass games on if you have a disc edition of the PS5. You see where I'm going. Making gaming a more economical and a viable option in the long run really ensures you kind of figure out a way to get both consoles maybe at some point in the future. Remember, these consoles have the lifespan of at least a decade. So even this is 2021. Even if you buy these consoles in 2023, till 2033, you will be enjoying a lot of games on these consoles. There is no doubt about that, especially considering the power they have under the hood. Like I said, for an entertainment setup, the Xbox makes more sense because of Dolby Vision and Atmos. For the exclusive lineup, you have the PlayStation 5. The DualSense Controller is definitely a game changer, and we hope that Microsoft's survey is a hint at the fact that we will get similar features on an Xbox controller in the future. Expandable storage for native next-gen games is available on both, unlockable on the PS5 in the near future. Plug-and-play option, which is only from Seagate right now, not available in India, but we think more options will be available in the future. Backwards compatibility is there for the PS5 and PS4 only. We don't know if older generation backwards compatibility will come in the future or not. But on the Xbox side, you have everything from the first generation Xbox coming up to the Series S and X, including the Xbox One family of games available. I hope I answered most of your questions about these consoles. Honestly, you could pick up either of them and be really happy with the experience that you're going to get, because both of them have an incredible lineup of games. Yes, the launch lineup may be weak on the Xbox, but it is only going to get stronger going forward from here. So there you have it, guys. That was our comparison. I hope you really enjoyed it. If there's anything else you'd like to know about these two devices, let us know in the comment section below. If there are enough questions on the same topic, we may just end up doing a dedicated video about those features. We haven't spoken about the UI much, I know that, but you can go back and check out our review, because that's where we've gone in depth into the UI as well. Yes, the Xbox supports VRR. Out of the box, VRR will come in a future update on the PS5. 1440p monitor support is there on the Xbox, and it's not there on the PS5. There are a lot of these small factors that we have not covered in detail. But if you'd like to know more about these things, you can let us know in the comment section below, and we will do our best to answer them there. And if there are enough, we will do a dedicated video. That's it for this one. We will catch you in another video. Until then, happy gaming.